has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall, coast to coast. That's the thing, Carver High. The coverage of this thing is so pathetic that, like, I can't even find who's winning the race right now an hour into it. Like, I went on like ESPN's to see. I had to go to more sports to click to find NASCAR. Then when I got to NASCAR, you know what it showed me? The dual races for Daytona. Like, didn't they do those like last week? Like, are you kidding me? They don't even have the leader. They don't have, it's like a golf tournament. They should have who's winning the race while it's happening, but they don't even have that up. You wonder why NASCAR doesn't matter.
That would be part of it. I'm not going to lie to you. I tried finding out as well what's going
nowhere.
on. And I can't. I'm looking at the NASCAR
here it is.
Twitter
here
feed.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now, I think this is what I'm guessing. I'm guessing Logano, Christopher Bell, who? Michael McDowell, who? Austin Cindric, who? Tyler Reddick. Does he play for the Eagles? Who?
No.
Chase Elliott and Hamlin are your top 7.
Well,
it only took me 5 minutes to find out who was winning, and this could be wrong. I don't even know if that's right.
Here's also what tells a little bit of the tale, though it doesn't say who's in first, but Hamlin is still on the live betting board, the favorite at 8-1, with Kyle Busch and Joey Logano right behind him. So on the live betting board, he's up there at the top. So that's really. So
I see a different. I even see a different one, Mike. I see Christopher Bell, Blaney, Logano, Heimlich maneuver, and McDowell, the top 5. And then when I click on the in-progress race, I get entirely different guys winning the race. Like, they can't even get it right who's racing, who's winning, who's leading, who the top 5. Honestly, at this point,
you got to remember,
I'm giving up.
You got to remember, it's a fast-moving sport. You gotta stay right in there. They're making a lot of turns. You got to stay in the mix. Things change very quickly. In NASCAR, that's for sure. We welcome in all of our radio affiliates for El Coast to Coast on a Monday. Sirius XM Channel 159 and Sports Byline. It is great to have everybody with us here today. I will instead give you a better update on the hockey instead of the NASCAR. Hockey. How about this? The Knights are up 3-0 at the Shark Tank against the Sharks right now as they are running away with that one. The Jets lead the Flames 3-2 in Ferrall, Alberta. We have the Oilers up 2-1 at the College rink as they're about to start the second period. And the Red Wings lead the Kraken 2-1. The Wild and the Canucks scored 17 goals as
That's
Minnesota
crazy.
tagged on the field goal at the end to win 10-7 up at St. Paul against Vancouver. Very, very upsetting for me. The Blackhawks are in Carolina tonight, Scotty. There are 2 other games. Most of the action was in the afternoon. But the Blackhawks are in Raleigh. How about 4 Bills now? -400 for the Canes, +310 for the Blackhawks, 5.5 the total.
This is a steamroll game for the Hurricanes. They're going to kill the Blackhawks. In fact, I don't think there's going to be any question they're going to beat them by 3 goals. So the 2.5's in play. Chicago's awful. Here. And I think we saw the Canes beat the Knights in Vegas by 2 goals. What do you think they're going to do to the Blackhawks? The Blackhawks are a college team.
They are not very good at all. And the other one is the Senators are in Tampa against the Lightning tonight. Lightning -165, plus $1.35 for Ottawa. Flat 7 the total here, a big 7.
So McCann just scored again for Seattle. That's his second goal to tie it up with the Red Wings. The guy's got a pair of goals. I mean, the Red Wings goalie's just awful. I can't even take it because I bet on Detroit today. I'm watching this guy. He's like a hooker with his legs spread. He's given up such easy goals. Honestly, Leon, whatever his name is, I can't even take it. And so the Ottawa-Tampa game is the one you're giving me? I'm on Tampa, and I'll tell you how I bet it. Let's just be clear. I want to get it right. So I bet it today. I mean, this is a problem. Here we go. It's very important I get this right. Here it is. It's my fault. I bet the over 7 at plus $1.05. That's what I got it at this morning.
Okay.
It's a very dangerous bet, but we saw them give up 9 goals the other night in an 11-goal game. They've played games lately over 6.5 goals. They've been scoring a lot of goals, giving up a lot of goals. They're at home. I took the over 7 goals at plus money if I can make it happen. Now, that's a crazy bet, but when I see 17 goals in this game today, the Wild game with Vancouver, how can I think that it's not possible that I could get 8 goals in this hockey game tonight at Amalie Arena?
Very possible indeed. Look, Ottawa, they play wild games as well, Scotty. You know that. Ottawa up and down the ice, that's for sure. And finally, the Islanders are going to host the 2026 All-Star Game. That will be at the Horse Track coming up in a couple of years. So everybody will be very excited for that. I'll even take you. We'll go to the skills competition on Friday night, Scotty. We'll go over to the Horse Track and watch it from the upstairs lounge, the Horseman's Lounge up there. We'll go up and watch the skills competition.
I think the NHL All-Star events and weekends are awful unless they're in your town and you can go meet all of these superstar players. So whenever it's anywhere else, let's say Tampa, or if it's in St. Paul, or if it's in Seattle, or if it's in Las Vegas, it's a waste of time. But if it's in Strong Island and we can drive there in under an hour to go meet all these players and party with them and take pictures with them and go to the game. I mean, I will bet my last dollar that Carver High will be at the 26 All-Star game in the USB Arena at the racetrack, sitting with all his glory and a Bud Light. He will be at that game for certain.
We were talking about this yesterday when they announced it, because they announced it while we were at the Stadium Series game at MetLife, and a lot of us were saying, I was saying, I think I'd rather go to the Friday night, like we were just saying, the skills stuff, than the actual game on Saturday. I think that I would rather go to all the skater and all that stuff. I think I'd rather see that and have a few beers at that event than going. But I will be at one of them. I don't know which one, but I'll be at one of them. Not sure. We got a couple years to figure it out before we do get there. All right, there you go. With the hockey, we'll keep you updated on what's going on here. I have a lot of college basketball for you. Ohio State upset Purdue yesterday. Of course, that's the old, you whack the coach, and then you give a big effort right after that. And Ohio State did that against Purdue.
Can I just say something? Honestly, there has never been a coach that I've ever seen in my life that loses more close games than Matt Painter.
That's
if this
true.
guy is involved in a close game, he loses not every time, not 60% of the time, 100% of the time, he loses. This guy loses every close game. And another thing, so they should have been, the refs were terrible in that game. It should have been a tie game. They made a horrible missed call on a foul on Edey that led to a 4-point at the other end for Ohio State. They will lose the NCAA tournament again because they were close games. Terrible.
Not long after Barstool decided to stop their operations as far as taking bets, they've partnered up here with DraftKings to do a lot of their promotions.
It was announced that there would be this non-compete clause for Barstool, meaning that, they couldn't partner with any other sports book. Obviously, DraftKings and other sports books are seen as kind of competitors of Penn.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
I'm sort of starting to figure out where these Canadian guys play well, bro. Not Hawaii, not California. Give me a Canadian in Ohio, Kev. Give me a Canadian in Michigan. Give me a Canadian at the Waste Management.
Good old Charlie Hoffman, the representative of Waste Management, played the best tournament of his life in the 8 years and lost in the playoff to the Canadian. It turned out to be like a wicked tournament. Shout out to Nick Taylor, gave BC's finest.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like, you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Carl is our sports, business, and legal insider from Harvard on SportsGrid and on Coast to Coast. Here he is again, and we're ready to fire. So everyone I know told me on this very show last week that Sabrina Ionescu was going to beat Steph Curry at the three-point contest. I bet on Curry. I won. I also thought it was the only event at all of the entire monstrosity that it was. That was the most embarrassing display of ineptitude I have ever seen in sports by a league that is worth billions. That All-Star game was laughable. It was disgusting. The three-point shot was a clank festival. And the dunk contest, they might as well just showed a film of the year before because that's what it was. The only thing that was good was that Ionescu chick taking on Curry. And you had a guy like Kenny Smith start dissing her. She should have been shooting from the women's line. And that's why they have a women's tee in golf. They even ruined that by letting that guy open his mouth.
Yeah, well, the only thing that's a little more embarrassing in my mind was a few years ago when Roger Goodell said enough is enough with the tackle game that ended up being a touch game and they put on pads. And now at least they're trying to do something else there. NHL, you and I both know, Gary Bettman, some warts, but he has it right that 3-on-3 is a great thing, notwithstanding Kucherov. And the NBA, I don't care if it's 211 points. It is sad. They've got to do something about it. But it doesn't really matter whether she won or lost. She hung with him, and now Caitlin Clark will be there next year. And the ratings for Saturday night, 30% higher than last year. And the women's game may in many ways be bigger than the men's game. Caitlin Clark is certainly making more money in NIL than she will when she turns pro. And I think the bottom line of it is, let's not focus on the Sunday events. Let's focus on what happens Saturday night. And maybe it's a foundation for what's going to happen in the future. I hope so.
Did you see the beating that Jay Williams got on Saturday on ESPN College Game Day when he suggested that she wasn't the greatest player ever based on the fact that she's never won a chip? And then Greenberg and Billis and Reese Davis went just deep six on this guy and started slamming him for his opinion that she doesn't matter because she doesn't win titles. Another guy with foot in the mouth disease.
Well, let's see what happens. I think he ought to go one-on-one with her. And let's see what happens there. Listen, 3,000 points, 1,000 assists. She's in the category, I think, of Pistol Pete. You are old enough to remember him. And Steph Curry, when he just decides to heck with it, I'm going to shoot whenever I get the ball. They're all fun to watch. And she is fun to watch, more than fun to watch. She is the only one to watch. And I think the bottom line is they should have figured out how to get her in the three-point contest, but maybe that or the shooting contest with Steph Curry. Maybe next year, regardless of eligibility in college or not. Look, athletes now, we've crossed the Rubicon of who's paid and who's not. That shouldn't keep her ineligible or eligible. They should have figured out a way to get her in it, but certainly they will next year.
So tell me about Salt Lake's West Side project to get a Major League Baseball stadium, even though I'm hearing that Sacramento will get the A's until they build a new ballpark in Las Vegas. And now we even know that the mayor, Goodman, she said, we don't even want them now. Like, what is going on with the Oakland A's?
It's a soap opera. I've heard, too, that Sacramento is odds-on favored for a temporary facility. But, you and I were in Vegas. It was the time when, if you want to make a political statement, that's the time to do it. And Mrs. Mayor Goodman, remember, Oscar Goodman was the guy that brought a lot of the teams in originally. This is his wife, and she is very popular. And she said, we don't even want them. I don't know what "we" means, because a lot of the hotels do want baseball because they want the activity, 3-4 days a week. Casino operators maybe not, because it's a diversion. Bottom line is the ship has maybe sailed. The A's had an all-day meeting in Oakland last week, so we're not sure. But at the end of the day, it has very little to do with Salt Lake. The Salt Lake deal may be not just for the A's temporarily or permanently. It may be for expansion. Nashville, Vegas, Charlotte. There are a lot of cities that want teams. But now Salt Lake has this only team in the Mountain Time Zone beside Denver being far away from something else. They've got an arena, as you know, with the Jazz and maybe hockey expanding into it. And then a stadium on the other side of town. Larry Miller, the car dealer who brought the Jazz in the first place, is anchoring a $3.5 billion development. I think Salt Lake is going to be the next Vegas in terms of number of expansion cities. You watch. They are a leader.
Yeah, but what's weird is, Rick, I just want to follow that with how many pro athletes have complained how miserable and boring it is there, and there's nothing to do, and they hate it there.
Yeah, well, listen, we're not doing this for the pro athletes' excitement. We're doing it for NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball values. And so they'll figure it out. They're making a lot of money. And I think the biggest advantage of the town is that it is so isolated. You got to go a few hours to go do anything. Mountain Time Zone, Mormon mentality. But I'm not sure you make an expansion or relocation decision based on how fun it's going to be for the players.
ESPN's deal with the college football playoff goes all the way till 32. Is that deal signed?
Well, it's being finalized. So let's be careful whether it's signed or not. $1.6 billion, 6-year deal, $1.3 billion, 6-year deal. And people say, well, it's double what it was before. Well, that's great. But remember, there are 3 games in today's playoffs that matter. There will be 11 every year in the future playoffs that matter. And a lot of people say double ain't good enough. And so whether it's signed or not, the other issue is, did you bring in NBC? Did you bring in Discovery? Did you cover network? Did you bring in Fox? All of the other networks that may have bid this deal up. And so as big as it is, some say it's not big enough.
Is 2 million subs a great number for the MLS or not?
It depends on who you talk to. Listen, they get $2.5 billion. The dollars over the 10-year deal is something that's interesting, says Don Garber. Problem is they have crossed the Rubicon of 2 million for 2023. That's fine. But the problem with the subscription model, you can't finance it. There are no guarantees. You can't raise money on the back of a TV deal. And the real key is going to be with Messi leaving. He's now leaving. There's no leaving now. But that's a great deal today with Messi. But what about a few years from now where the subscription-based deal doesn't have the superstars at the table? Luckily, if the MLS bridges this gap, 2-3 years from now, they have the World Cup to look forward to, and they can build on that. But, a lot of people still unhappy about that deal.
So Nike gets rid of Tiger Woods, and then they lay off 2% of their workforce. Things can't be good up in Oregon.
No, 47,000 people work there, so that's great, but they laid off a lot. And remember, Jokic and the Nuggets deal, that was cut by Nike. Nike's got to cut $2 billion, they say, over a 2-year period. That's a lot of money. And so whether they do it or not long term, Nike is just doing it, just cutting it.
The NHL expands their relationship with Verizon, and I thought their event on Saturday and Sunday at the Meadowlands was gigantic for the league. You're talking over 150,000 fans in 2 days.
It's getting bigger. They're building on it. It used to be just one Winter Classic game on New Year's Day. Now it's playing all over 2 days in a row. Meadowlands can't get any bigger than that. 6-5 overtime game, second game. Gary Bettman is doing it right. They're coming up with these major events. The in-season tournament, it is a big deal.
Fabulous stuff, Mr. Haro. Thank you. Always good to catch up on the business of sports and where the money is. We'll catch up with you again on Coast to Coast. I will get people updated on this hockey game. The Red Wings have taken the lead again in Seattle.
Not long after Barstool decided to stop their operations as far as taking bets, they've partnered up here with DraftKings to do a lot of their promotions.
It was announced that there would be this non-compete clause for Barstool, meaning that, they couldn't partner with any other sports book. Obviously, DraftKings and other sports books are seen as kind of competitors of Penn.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
I'm sort of starting to figure out where these Canadian guys play well, bro. Not Hawaii, not California. Give me a Canadian in Ohio, Cam. Give me a Canadian in Michigan. Give me a Canadian at the Waste Management.
Good old Charlie Hoffman, the representative of Waste Management, played the best tournament of his life in 8 years and lost in a playoff to the Canadian. It turned out to be like a wicked tournament. Shout out to Nick Taylor, gave BC's finest.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like, you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Adam Kaplan is our NFL insider, and when we were at the Super Bowl in Vegas, he said to me quietly, Ferrall, don't forget to get your booster. And I forgot to get my booster, and now I have the Hanta. And then Adam got his booster, and he's feeling fantastic. Not only that, he's going to Indianapolis next week to his 23rd combine, healthier than ever, as I continue to kick out gigantic green lugs all over the snow in New York City when I walk my dog and try not to breathe on people. All right, Adam, let's talk about free agency today on C2C. You've already upset me before coming on by suggesting to me that the Steelers should get Ryan Tannehill to push Kenny touchdown, whereas all the Steeler players have said they want Mason Rudolph to be the starting quarterback next year in Pittsburgh.
Well, listen, here's the deal. They want Mason Rudolph back, right? And where else could he really go where he has a chance to be a starting quarterback? Now, Kenny Pickett will enter the offseason as their starter, but they want competition for him, considering how much he dropped off after that great offseason. That went out the door. He struggled mightily. In season, the offense coordinator, Matt Canada, was fired. Arthur Smith comes in. He knows Ryan Tannehill. Obviously, he coached him. And that's one of the names to keep an eye on when we get closer to free agency, which starts in about 3 weeks. So that's one guy. Again, they also want Mason Rudolph back. Yeah, they're going to have a fail-safe here. They're going to have a plan where if Pickett is not ready, if he struggles again, they're not going to let this bring down their season because, as you and I know, and Steeler fans know, they're really good at the skill positions. That's not the problem. They have a good running game. Offensive line was better last season than it had been. Got to be better at the quarterback position. And isn't it interesting with Mason Rudolph, right? As soon as he gets in there, the downfield passing game becomes a big part of their offense all of a sudden. So that's what they're trying to get back here. They've got Deontay Johnson, who's still under contract, by the way. He's not allowed to come back, though. He's under contract, but we'll see what they do. We'll see if they trade him or keep him around for yet another year. He's their best downfield run after the catch guy. George Pickens, of course, Freiermuth. They got to get Calvin Austin going. But the big thing for L here is Arthur Smith being the play caller. They want it to be run-based. It's got to start with that, but they've got to get the pass game going as well, and that's a big thing for Arthur Smith to get going here.
So explain that teams can start using one of their franchise tags or a transition tag starting tomorrow through March 5th. Is that about right?
Correct. That's exactly 2 weeks. They have till March 5th at 4 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, they could start tagging players. It's extremely rare that they do it on the first day, which is February 20th. Typically, you see it within 3 to 5 days or right at the deadline when teams are negotiating with these players. Like with T. Higgins, I can't imagine they're going to get a long-term deal done. Why? Yes, he's a good player. He was hurt last season, multiple hamstring issues. At some point within the next year or so, Jamar Chase is going to get an extension. It's really hard to pay two players $30 million plus at the same position, wide receiver. But when you really look at the list, Michael Pittman's another guy to keep an eye on who had a great season with the Colts. It's been a terrific story as a former second-round pick. You might remember his dad, a former NFL running back, most notably with the Buccaneers and Cardinals. Those are just some of the guys who can get the tag, but I don't see anyone getting it at quarterback. At running back, I doubt it. Outside chance with Josh Jacobs. So remember now we've got a new coaching staff. You've got a new front office. Tom Telesco, their new GM, did not draft him. Look, the teams will use the tag when they think the guy is on the up, and coming off of a great season. Josh Jacobs was not. Neither was the Raider offense. Barkley, highly unlikely he's going to get the tag. Actually, there's a realistic chance that he walks. Not a done deal. He's not coming off a good season. There's a concern about where their running game is going. Their offensive line, which has been really dreadful. They overachieved 2 years ago. Giants have to rebuild that. They got one stud, Andrew Thomas. Other than that, they don't really have any what you call starting quality players. So with the Giants there, they got to rebuild the running game. They got to rebuild that offensive line.
So let me just ask you real quick. So you talk about Barkley, and they already messed with him once. They didn't want to pay him once. They ended up giving him the tag and giving him $1 million on top of it to $11 million, if I remember correctly. Now they're wondering again about Barkley. So why don't I just be the harbinger of bad news and just end it already? They need to just get rid of him because they have never admitted that he's the best player on the team, and they still mess with him. They still won't give him money. They don't believe in paying a running back. That's just all there is to it. And what they should do is just get rid of him already and stop this charade and this game they're playing. And also, they should just admit that their quarterback situation is horrific. What they really need is a quarterback and to trade, get rid of Barkley, and just stop with all these games because they're not going to pay him.
Yeah, and with Barkley, Scott, the real story here is he did not have a good season. Let's call it like it is. Yes, he got that enhanced franchise tag last year. He didn't play well. I don't see him coming back. It's not a done deal, but I don't see it happening. The other guys, Tony Pollard got tagged last season, didn't have a great season, kind of fell off a little bit. They changed the offensive scheme. Austin Eckler fell off. To me, he's got to be in a two-back system where he could be their third down back. But the Chargers wisely didn't extend his deal. Good player, but if you really look at these running backs, a lot of them did not have great seasons. And it's hard to justify getting a tag or even signing an extension from these clubs when the backs have fallen off a little bit. And that's why a lot of these guys are going to make it to the market.
Okay, and another guy that didn't do anything was Josh Jacobs in Las Vegas, and that's all there is to it. Now let's go back to the quarterbacks for a second. I saw a story over the weekend where people were talking about who would you rather have, Kirk Cousins off of Achilles or Russell Wilson. And then I'm, looking at your list here, and you don't even mention Russell Wilson. Meanwhile, we saw with that. I know, but that whole scene was such a debauchery in Denver. They're not seriously going to keep him around, are they?
No, we're fully expecting him to be gone one way or the other. They got to figure it out with the cap. They're going to have to work with his agent. They may have to restructure and release him. We'll see what they try to do. Remember, they tried to get him to do it in midseason. He turned it down, but it's been an absolute disaster. That's going to, one way or the other, there's going to be a massive cap hit that they're going to take there. And Jarrett Stidham will have a chance to be a starting quarterback for the Broncos 24 and beyond. But the Broncos have to figure that out. And again, Wilson is signed for many more seasons where Kirk Cousins is up. Now, at the midway point last season when he tore that Achilles against the Packers, he was having a phenomenal season. The question for any club looking at him, and also the Vikings who have not made a hard decision yet of what they're going to do in terms of trying to re-sign him or not, is when he'll be ready. And at 35 years old, what could he do coming off this injury? And the guy's been so durable, save this injury. He's been so durable over his career. This guy's been a winning quarterback. It's just such a shame he got hurt because you saw the drop-off of Justin Jefferson. The Vikings, by the way, do not have the future starter on the roster. Jaron Hall is not it. He's a developmental backup. Josh Jacobs is a pretty good backup. He's not even under contract. But the bottom line is if the Vikings walk away from Kirk Cousins, they're going to have to look towards the draft for the future at that position because they don't have that guy on the roster right now.
Well, it sounds like they're scared to go with Cousins anymore after the Achilles. Let's talk about how far apart Mike Evans and the Buccaneers are.
Yeah, so what I'm told, a couple things here. First of all, prior to last season, it was the Buccaneers who declined to extend his contract. He wanted it done, as one source who's worked with the Bucs before told me. Evans is great when he has a chip on his shoulder. He had a great season. Yes, he had some drops, but he had a phenomenal season. We could see a franchise tag here. And remember, Baker Mayfield's also up. Bucs want Mayfield back. He wants to be back. He's going to be a Buck one way or the other. The tough thing here is to get Evans back, who's an older player. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, by the way, now in his 30s. They have to figure out how they're going to structure that contract. But this guy's been a phenomenal player, arguably the NFL's best receiver over the last 7 to 8 years, just absolutely phenomenal, so consistent. And look, Scott, if you look at their roster, it's Chris Godwin, in terms of the guys who are on a contract, it's Chris Godwin and Trey Palmer had a decent rookie season, and that's about it. They got to figure out one way or the other to get Mike Evans back, and they're gonna work on this one. I wouldn't rule this one out. I know a lot of people think he's going to play elsewhere, and why I wouldn't rule that out. The bottom line is, folks, it's always, what does your roster look like when the player walks? It's not very good, and they're going to have to sort of fortify and rebuild that receiver position if Evans walks.
What about T. Higgins? Because you know how much of a badass I think he is. Are they going to keep him or let him walk? And you would think if he walks, he could get a pretty big gig in a number of places.
All right, so he's more of a 1A, not a 1. Jamar Chase is their ex-receiver or number 1 receiver. See, Scott, it's really hard to pay 2 receivers. The number now for the top guys, the top echelon guys in the prime of their career is $30 million or more. Tyreek Hill at $30 million. Every receiver who's on the open market is going to try to hit that. Higgins on the open market is in the low 20 million range, 22 million, in that range. Now, again, he was hurt a lot last season. Then you had the Joe Burrow injury. I cannot see the Bengals paying long-term to receivers. That's why it makes way more sense for Higgins to get tagged. I think realistically, he gets tagged. Remember Jesse Bates? Remember they tagged him? Then the next season, they let him walk, and he walked to Atlanta.
I had Dalton Schultz on the show in Las Vegas at the Media Center at the Mandalay Bay. I think it would be a huge mistake. They will rule the day if they don't re-sign him in Houston. I think the Texans need this guy if they want to continue on their upward trend offensively and the success of that team. I think he's a big piece.
Yeah, young quarterbacks love to throw the ball over the middle to the tight ends. Dalton Schultz had a good year, good running after the catch. They don't have anyone left. Brevin Jordan's more of an athletic slot tight end. He's not a guy who's going to hit a lot of volume. I would expect them to try to bring Schultz back. Won't be easy, but the bottom line is you're absolutely right. They don't have anyone left who could replace him, and they got to take a look at the roster, but they're doing pretty well going forward.
All right, Adam, we'll see you later in the week. Great stuff, buddy.
Not long after Barstool decided to stop their operations as far as taking bets, they've partnered up here with DraftKings to do a lot of their promotions.
It was announced that there would be this non-compete clause for Barstool, meaning that, they couldn't partner with any other sports book. Obviously, DraftKings and other sports books are seen as kind of competitors of Penn.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
I'm sort of starting to figure out where these Canadian guys play well, bro. Not Hawaii, not California. Give me a Canadian in Ohio, Kev. Give me a Canadian in Michigan. Give me a Canadian at the Waste Management.
Good old Charlie Hoffman, the representative of Waste Management, played the best tournament of his life in 8 years and lost in a playoff to the Canadian. It turned out to be like a wicked tournament. Shout out to Nick Taylor, gave BC's finest.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like, you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
BetMGM is giving away money again, hand over fist. It's like, it is unbelievable. It's like an ATM machine just spitting out money. Have you ever seen in those movies where the guys have the guns at the strip club and they're spraying money and it's just flying out all over the room and it's just all over the floor like Floyd Mayweather? He's got the gun and it's just spraying money. That's what BetMGM's doing, and they're doing it on a daily basis. It's truly unbelievable and unforgiving. Use the bonus code SG150 when you sign up for your new BetMGM mobile account. Go to iOS or Android to download the app, or even BetMGM.com. All you have to do is put $5 in to open an account, then bet $5 on anything, standard odds price. Hell, bet on a hockey game and lose. It doesn't matter if you lose because they're giving you $150 in bonus bets immediately. This is just fantastic. Capitalism at its finest. BetMGM. With gun money machines, spraying money all over the country and all over your community. God bless BetMGM. Make sure you use the bonus code SG150 and go to BetMGM.com if you're confused in any way about why they're giving away so much money to people. All right, Carver High. I said earlier on the show that Rick Pitino should be fired. I just don't understand a guy that they hire for millions to bring in and turn St. John's into a Final Four team, has been there 1 year, brought in his entire crew of players, and then every night after games, he goes on these tirades, these geezer tirades. First, he started with NIL. Then he said a week later that they should pay players, unionize and pay players to play. And the NIL, first it was all screwed up. Then it was let's pay the players like they're in a union. Then, to top it all off, he goes on to say that his program stinks, his facilities stink, it's a dump, and the players suck and don't play hard, and that none of them listen. They hear but don't listen. So in other words, he called them all stupid. And then the reality is he is old and finished and washed, and it's time for him to go with the others in the 70 and above crowd that I've been selling out down the river for weeks now on this air. And I did it with Carroll. I did it with Belichick. I did it with Lundqvist. The only person yesterday that survived the cut, only one guy. Oh, by the way, Sterling and Susie, also down the river. Gotta go. They both suck. And everybody knows it. There's a long line, a deep line. It is high. It is far. The second baseman catches the ball. And this guy's got a home run in the left field seats. He's so bad. Okay, he was great. Now he's not. Here's the only guy to survive the cut at all in broadcasting. They already ran Al Michaels out. It's Hubie Brown. The guy's like 100, and he's still calling NBA games brilliantly like he was 50. Hubie Brown still has it. No one else does. Fire Pitino. You go out and call us losers. Don't listen. Stupid. Facilities are a dump. NIL, pay the players. He needs to go to another Italian restaurant and sleep with a hooker on a red and white tablecloth just like he used to. Get rid of him.
Yeah, we would probably be here for the rest of the show if we tried to play everything that Rick Pitino said yesterday after the loss at the horse track to Seton Hall, but we at least got a couple of things in. Here we go.
I think they're unathletic. I don't think they move well laterally. I don't think they're going to pick it up in the next week. I think they're slow laterally. I mean, Sean Conway gives you everything he can. He's slow laterally. About 5 guys are slow laterally. Even the Celtics, when we lost, I've enjoyed every minute being a Boston Celtic coach. Didn't like the fact that we lost in that following year, but this has been the most unenjoyable experience I've had since I've been coaching.
You have any second thoughts of taking this job?
No, not at all. It's not St. John's. It's my team.
He's lying.
I think they're very respectful. They hear, but they don't listen. It's taken me a month to get them to throw bounce passes. Actually, 2 months to throw bounce passes. Just thinking of getting ready for Georgetown, because Georgetown could definitely beat us. I'm not even thinking of the future at all. I'm just thinking of the next game and the next game and the next game, and that's it. Just try to get as many wins as you possibly can and represent St. John's in the best fashion you can.
You can't do that by saying those things. Anyone that thinks that he can say those things and just not worry about it and get to the finish line, he sounds like my daughter halfway through the season. They'd lost 20 games. She's like, I just want to quit. I'm like, you're a star shooter. Just finish. Don't be a quitter. I hate it. I hate my coach. I hate the, oh, God, you sound like Patino. This guy is a quitter right now. He said, Georgetown will kick our ass. We're awful. I just want to get to the end and get it over with. They need to fire him. Have some stones. You can't have some guy literally take a leak all over your program that you're paying millions of dollars to run the program. You cannot have someone slamming your institution that you brought in and paid millions to do the job. You just can't have it. Someone at St. John's has to stand up and say, enough of this. Enough of this nonsense. You know what? They need me around. Honestly, I always told you, Carver High, get a guy that can say no and fire people, and you're on your way. Now, I have no mercy. I would go right in and go, Rick, it's over. You're fired. Get out. Buy out $12 million. Here you go. Have another sleep with another woman that ain't your wife. Go ahead. Get out. Get out. Tell your lawyer to call me. Go. We don't like you anymore slamming our school. How do you like them apples? I tell it like it is.
Yeah, but I got a feeling that they're not going to have the stones to do that. They'll keep Rick around because they haven't had anybody as good as Rick.
Don't let the inmates run the asylum.
30 years.
Okay? You cannot let him push you around.
You shouldn't, but he's going to with this. They're going to with this. We pretty much did everything for the weekend. UConn beat Marquette in that game on Saturday. Kansas beat Oklahoma. Nice job by South Carolina, Scotty. I was on South Carolina on Saturday afternoon. Nice melt by them with an 11-point lead in the second half, losing 64-63 to LSU. And Kentucky got themselves a big win for Cal, 70-59. They won at Auburn.
How about that?
Yes.
How about the big show down at the Jungle at Neville all day, knobbing Bruce Pearl and the Auburn Tigers with their two nicknames, War Eagle and Tigers. You get two nicknames. And then you lay an egg at night on national television and lose in your building to a team that's a mess. Kentucky can't do anything right, and they kicked your ass in your building. That was crazy.
It certainly was. UConn is the first unanimous number one in the top 25 poll this season. Nobody else has done that. That's because Purdue lost and UConn won. They are 5-1 to win the national title right now here on a Monday, as we are just a couple weeks away from March. A lot of teams on that list, Scotty, who ain't going to be getting my money 3 weeks from now when we get to March Madness. I know that.
Purdue loses close games, Mike, and Marquette proved what they were worth yesterday, getting whacked by UConn in Hartford. So I'm going to scratch both of them off right now. I want to see what Houston does tonight. They look good over the weekend. Let's see how they look again tonight at home against Iowa State. And we'll know if they're offensively challenged or not. We already know they play great D. Let's see if they can keep scoring. They scored a lot in their last game and look good. Then I'll be more of a believer.
Indeed. We have 3 games for you tonight of significance. Let's get to those. We'll start in the ACC. Virginia heading to Blacksburg tonight to take on the Hokies. How about this? Hokies favored -3.5, 126.5 is the total.
Yeah, I just don't know how you can give 3.5 points to a Virginia team that is turning the corner and playing great defensively and winning, and they're flat out better than Virginia Tech. Now, I know it's tough to win in Blacksburg, but that team, the Hokies team, just isn't that good this year. I bet on Virginia to win this game on the road outright. I can't believe they're getting 3.5.
Next, we've got a couple in the Big 12 tonight. We'll start in Texas, where Kansas State comes to town. We have a couple fat numbers here. This is now 8.5 for the Longhorns. 140.5 is the total, down a point from earlier.
You know, this game reminds me of the TCU game with Kansas State and Manhattan over the weekend, Mike, that Dixon's team hit a dagger bomb three, and the foul wasn't called, but he knocked down the three bomb in the air, got fouled, got landed on, the whole deal. But the ball went down, and TCU walked out with a win in Manhattan. I think this game is very similar to that game. I think Texas and K-State will be much closer than 8.5. I'd take the points with K-State here. I think Texas barely wins that game.
And we do have a top 10 game in Houston tonight as Iowa State is in to take on the Cougars. Minus 8.5 for Houston now, down from the 9.5, and 131.5 is the total.
Mike, I bet it at 9.5 with Iowa State. They're a really good team on both ends of the floor, and I'm scared to death at Houston, at the Fertitta, to take that bet on the road and think that I'm going to, hit it. We've seen it before. You bet on teams, and then they get whacked on the road. This is a tough road game for them in H-Town. Houston is very good defensively. They're going to give Iowa State problems. I'm hoping they covered a 9.5. I went with a Cyclones high-risk bet.
Before we get out of here, let's quickly, apparently have some Ben Stevens from the early line this morning giving his thoughts on the matchup as well.
Houston, by the way, was knocked off in Hilton Coliseum by Iowa State just over a month and a half ago, and that game stayed well under its pregame number. I think the defensive intensity will be there at an all-time high, but also a really quick turnaround, Donnie, from playing Saturday afternoon for both of these teams. Iowa State against Texas Tech. Houston blew out Texas by 21 points. Quick turnaround, big Monday, early game here on this Monday evening, or at least a game on this Monday evening. I go under 127.5 as well. I think Iowa State can keep this game within that 9.5-point margin. I do think Houston wins outright, however.
Well, there you have it. From the early line today with our guys, Big Ten Ben and Donnie Rightside. So kind of similar thoughts on the game as we had. So
Indeed.
What else, Mike?
South Carolina women get their SEC record 43rd straight regular season win. They are no joke, as we talked about last week when we were talking about Clark and we mentioned them. The South Carolina women on a mission to win it all
Mike,
again.
Because, Caitlin Clark deservedly gets all the attention in college basketball and no one else gets a nibble. But the South Carolina women's team is so much better than Caitlin Clark and the Iowa women's Hawkeye team. It's not even funny. It's head and shoulders, baby. Head and shoulders. By the way, Seattle tied up Detroit, 12.5 left in the third. The Red Wings can't live with prosperity.
Unbelievable. And the Oilers are down 3-2 going to the third here in Arizona at the college rink. So they're having all kinds of problems against this kid goalie. A few baseball things. One, I saw Soto this morning. He showed up at Yankee camp, said that he's not talking about his extension. We know that's going to happen. He's going to get a ton of money, and he's probably going to play somewhere else next year. Giancarlo Stanton, Scotty, he talked about Cashman and saying that he was injury prone, and he says that he claims to be in some of the best baseball shape of his life. I will believe that when I see it. Over under Memorial Day, Scotty, before the first Giancarlo Stanton injury list appearance. Over under Memorial Day. What do you have?
I mean, Mike, it's embarrassing that they're constantly trying to sell pictures of this guy's body and how he says he's in the best shape of his life when he misses half the season every year in his career for the last 7 years. So, I mean, the bottom line, and he can't hit 200. So I've been hearing enough about him. I can't take any more of it.
Not long after Barstool decided to stop their operations as far as taking bets, they've partnered up here with DraftKings to do a lot of their promotions.
It was announced that there would be this non-compete clause for Barstool, meaning that, they couldn't partner with any other sports book. Obviously, DraftKings and other sports books are seen as kind of competitors of Penn.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
I'm sort of starting to figure out where these Canadian guys play well, bro. Not Hawaii, not California. Give me a Canadian in Ohio, Kev. Give me a Canadian in Michigan. Give me a Canadian at the Waste Management.
Good old Charlie Hoffman, the representative of Waste Management, played the best tournament of his life in the 8 years and lost in a playoff to the Canadian. It turned out to be like a wicked tournament. Shout out to Nick Taylor, gave BC's finest.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like, you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
All right, for all the finish time, the Yankees have an offer on the table, as I said earlier, to Blake Snell. I hope they get him because I think the rest of their rotation is trash. 2 West Coast teams still in the mix. The Angels, which are the garbage dump of franchises now, and the San Francisco Giants, who have more money to play with than the Yankees because they haven't been able to sign a big star in several years. The Red Sox signed Liam Hendricks. I have a problem with this. The guy had Tommy John, he had cancer, and now what? He's going to have some huge comeback season. He'll be injured before the end of spring training. Brewers re-signed Brandon Woodruff. They should have kept Burns and dealt Woodruff. Bryce Harper, fine with first base, wants to play into his 40s. Who's going to fall for that bad idea? I don't want anybody in their 40s playing on my major league team. I don't care who he is, and I think Bryce Harper's an absolute badass. Thanks, we're done with you at 38. Ohtani won't play in the Dodgers spring opener. How many times are we going to hear that this year? Sacramento, the front runner to host the A's before the 27 move to Vegas that's not happening anyway. Pablo Sandoval trying to make a comeback. We told you, the Panda Bear at 37 with the Giants. He'll be cut in spring training because he's a fat ass and his game is finished. Mike Evans and the Bucks are far apart on a contract extension. He'll be a free agent in March. What an epic fail this will be for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to let him go. Pittsburgh submits bids to host the 26 or 27 NFL draft. It can't be worse than Detroit, can it? Steelers have internal division about Kenny Pickett as the starting quarterback. The players all want Mason Rudolph to be the starter. The Ravens signed Nelson Aguilar to an extension. Detroit says the NFL draft will be secure after the Kansas shooting at the parade. Whatever you say, everyone predicts nothing will happen in our city. Good luck with that. Matsuyama sets the course record with a 62 with the comeback at the Genesis. GTD is next. Go to FerrallOnTheBench.com. We'll see you tomorrow on Coast to Coast. Please.